Battlefield 6's free-to-play Battle Royale mode dropped earlier today. Some love it already, and others are continuously skeptical, which is completely fair to be honest. Some have even gone so far and said that this is just Warzone but in Battlefield. But I'm not so sure about that just yet. So far the trailer is doing fairly well, I'd say, if you're taking the like to dislike ratio into account, but I do want to dig a little bit deeper into the actual gameplay of this mode. So I've done my very best to collect all the data and all the information on this that I could in the short period of time that this game mode have been out. So bear with me if I accidentally have missed something. I did really try to get all the important stuff in there though. But I do want to start off with the gameplay mechanics, which is probably the most exciting topic of them all. You know, how does the game actually play? I will mostly try to cover the new things that are in this mode, as I think some features in the Battle Royale scene is just kind of expected at this point. But starting off with some basics, the class systems. You know, this is a Battlefield game. It has the classic 4-class system where you have your different gadgets and abilities. Support has the support package you can drop down for ammo and health. Scout has its drone and its tugs. Engineer has its repair tool, and Assault has the assault ladder and the high explosive grenade launcher. Now along with that, every class also have different passive abilities, a little bit like in the multiplayer, but this time they're a little bit more useful, I'd say. So going over them quickly, as you can see them on screen here, the Assault has quick armor plating as the first passive, which makes your armor replating 33% faster. It has Grenadier, which means high explosive launcher carrying capacity increased to 5 rounds instead of 3, I'm pretty sure. And Cluster Munitions, which gives your high explosive launcher 5 fused sub-munitions, which basically makes the grenade kind of split into 5 but smaller grenades. The Engineer has enhanced targeting, which means your launcher is now aim guided via a magnified optic. Devastating Impact, which means damaging an enemy vehicle reduces their repair effectiveness by 50% for 10 seconds. And Mobility Kill Warhead, which makes your aim guided launcher temporarily immobilize vehicles for 8 seconds. So this means if you hit a tank with your aim guided launcher, it won't be able to move or anything for 8 seconds. Your support will have your supply line armor carrying increased by 2 plates, which means you can go from 5 to 7 plates at a time, which is really good. Your ammo carrying capacity has increased for all ammo types as well. Urgent Aid, which means you drag down players 20% faster and revive them 2.5 seconds quicker. Then we have the Hemostatic Smoke, which means that if you team revive inside of a smoke, all classes gets a 2.2 second revive and provides 12.5 HP per second regen after 2.5 seconds. And it also slows your downed bleed out. And lastly, Recon has Bombarder, which means a recon drone can drop explosive payloads, tracking pulse, spot enemies within a 25-meter radius for 5 seconds after downing their squad mate, and Loitering Munition, which means your recon drone can self-destruct for additional damage. All of these passives has one shared max ability, which is the Stockpile, and that makes your gadget resupply rate increase by 10% with each improvement, which means you can level up these passives again and again and again, but it resets upon death. So I do think these passives are pretty cool, and they will count up during your gameplay, which means getting kills during missions or finding these briefcases, as you can see on the screen right now, that just gives you XP towards your passive upgrades. Now moving on to another upgrade, which is the weapon upgrade or the weapon class upgrade. As you can see on screen, I find one right here. There is one upgrade per weapon class. That means for like pistols or marksmen or assault rifles, SMGs, and so on and so on. And what you have to do is you have to just pick it up, have it in your inventory, and then when you have a weapon that corresponds to the weapon upgrade, you can actually press space or X, I think, on controller, and you can activate this weapon upgrade on your weapon. Then you have to choose what upgrade you want. That could be, for example, in my case here, more accuracy or more ammo capacity. I do think this is a kind of cool and unique way to upgrade your weapons, so I kind of like this system, especially when we don't have a monetary system, which I want to get into next. And yeah, you heard right, there's no money, there's no point system or anything like that, which also means you can't buy UAVs or you can't buy your teammates back, and you can't buy loadouts because there's no loadouts in this mode. The only thing you can change is what pistol you want to start with and what melee weapon you want to start with, and your class, of course. As I also just briefly touched on, you can't buy your teammates back, but there is a respawn system, and these are just respawn beacons all across the map, and I do think they're very common to find. I didn't feel like I had any hard times trying to find one of these respawn beacons, so I think respawning your mates won't be a problem at all. Though I do want to touch on how these respawn systems work. It takes about 30 seconds to revive a teammate, and people can see you on the map when you do this, and they can also hear you when you're respawning someone. And this little green circle around your respawn beacon will appear when you start the respawn, but you have to stay inside that circle to finish the respawn. Although you don't have to sit still and hold E or hold square on some object, you can actually defend yourself or heal meanwhile you do this. Anything like that, you have this kind of little space to move around as you're reviving your teammates. And if you are the one who is getting revived, then the smaller zone you're getting revived in, let's say you get respawned closer to the end of the match, you will respawn with a better tier weapon than if you get killed in the beginning and you get revived off bat. There's also a second chance system, which means everyone has like an extra life. So if you die, let's say you die just right off spawn, you will actually just respawn like 20 seconds after. But this does disable as you get more into the end game. Kind of like the GWAC, but without you having to actually fight anyone, you just always get another respawn. So make sure if you kill an enemy from an enemy team, they will most likely be able to spawn back if it's an early game. So look out for the parachutes. The firestorm, or the zone, whatever you want to call it, is a little bit different from Warzone's zone. And it's more so a firestorm, kind of like in Battlefield 5. Although this time it has a constant movement. It doesn't go into zones and then stay there for a minute or half a minute and then start moving again. It's always going to be moving. Even though it's just a little bit, it'll always keep moving. And it burns and damages everything in its path. So you can't really stay in a house outside the storm or anything like that. You have to keep moving towards the middle of the map. This also damages you the closer you get to it. You have this little heat meter that shows you how close you are to the zone before you start taking a little bit of damage. And then when you start taking damage, you have a kill meter, which means if this meter goes to the top, you are dead. And if you go outside of the zone, it kills you instantly. You cannot recover from that. So this zone is no joke. You really have to be careful with this zone. It's kind of pretty cool and cinematic in a way, because you do feel like you're getting chased by this actual firestorm as you are moving towards the middle of the map. As you can see here in this gameplay behind me, it was a little bit tense and it was one of my first games. Super cool, and we got a 3rd place in this game. Very, very fun. Now, the armor system I do want to talk about. It is very similar to Warzone's armor system. It does take a little bit longer to actually apply the plates, and you can have 2 plates on as default. And you can carry 5 plates as default. Unless, of course, you are playing support, where your first passive will give you 2 extra armor plates, as we talked about earlier. Now, that is more or less all of the actual gameplay mechanics. I do want to move on to a little bit other stuff, like the missions, how the looting works, how the vehicle works, the maps, and the gunplay. So starting off with the missions, you can get rewards like UAV, artillery strikes, and XP for your passives, and more from doing these missions. And also the vehicles, but I'll touch on that just in a second. And these missions can be stuff like breaking open a safe, where you have to go get bolt cutters to actually cut open something, or redirect satellites to hack some server or something like that. Kind of very simple stuff, just a little bit filler. I don't think they mean anything really, but you know, it's pretty cool. It's just some small missions to do for some extra gear and some extra XP. The looting system is very, very similar to Warzone's. I feel like when you kill someone, they just kind of plop out the loot everywhere, and you can run over it and pick up the ammo, pick up the armor plates, everything like that. You can take their weapons. The weapons have rarity, kind of like Warzone as well, and so do the loot boxes. There's different kind of loot boxes all over the map. Some are looking very like gray and green, very simple, and then there's some that are like orange or red that has really better loot and more loot in them. Kind of cool. I think they are called weapon crates, but I'm not quite sure. And then there's also these weapon crates that fall down from the sky into the map that actually gives you weapons and stuff like artillery strikes or UAVs and stuff like that. So look out for them, but be careful because other people see them as well on the map. There's 2 types of vehicles. You have the transportation vehicles and you have the attack vehicles like tanks, helicopters, and so on. And these can be acquired through getting these key cards that you can gain through completing the missions that we just talked about and using them on the vehicle stations like shown in the trailer here in the background. So obviously these vehicles are pretty strong, but then again, finding mines or rocket launchers is not that hard, so you will be vulnerable to those, especially engineers and stuff like that. So I don't think they're actually that overpowered at all. I think you just have to play a little bit more strategically if you're near a tank. The transportation vehicles are there. They're kind of just like in multiplayer, like ATVs and such. They're not that new, nothing really exciting to talk about, so it's just really to get around the map faster and safer. The map layout is kind of odd in some places. I feel like some places are just very barren, and personally I think the colors are very bland. Feels just very gray, but maybe that is just me. I don't know, maybe my settings is a little bit messed up, but I think it looks a little bit more bland and kind of more boring, I guess, than the multiplayer. So let me know what you think about that one. The gunplay in itself is, I think it's okay. The TTK is a little bit fast, I think, for a battle royale. Although at long ranges, it can feel really hard to control. And I think mid-range to long range will probably be dominated by snipers, in my opinion. Maybe DMRs. I haven't tried DMRs out in this game mode yet. And you cannot laser people the same way you can in Warzone at all, which I personally think is a very, very good thing, but something to still be aware of. There's also this other mode called Gauntlet, and according to EA's own description, it is as follows. RedSec's free-to-play destination also includes Gauntlet, a new mode which pushes squad competition to a new level of intensity. In this fast-paced elimination mode, 8 teams of 4-player squads complete in a series of dynamic round-based missions in a tournament-style format. Each round consists of 5-minute windows for squads to complete their mission objectives. Prepare for the unexpected, as each round, location, and mission will be unique variables. So RedSec definitely brings something new to the BR scene, and I think it is a great addition to Battlefield 6, but I don't think it should overshadow the multiplayer, as that is the main mode for Battlefield and should continue to be so, in my opinion. So far, RedSec is fun. I have enjoyed my time playing it. I will definitely have to play it more to get an actual real opinion on the game mode, but so far I do think it's okay. I don't think it's gonna be any groundbreaking thing. I don't think it's going to revolutionize anything. I think it's just going to be an extra mode for Battlefield 6 to get some variation now and then. I appreciate you watching, and if you like what you see, why not subscribe while you're here? We are trying to hit 40,000 subscribers before this year ends, and I'd love to see you as part of the team. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the battlefield.